I'm Kurt Hauswirth with Public Radio 90 WNMU-FM, and this is the next edition of the Local Spin. I have a few guests with me today, and I'm very excited to welcome them. I've got Luke Arquette, who you might know from a few different musical projects, such as his role as beat maker and producer extraordinaire with the local hip-hop duo Blanco Suave, or as a producer of his own material as Jollygood 94, or just Jollygood. But we've also got sax man Patrick Booth with us too. I don't know if I could even begin to mention all the musical projects he's had his hand in around the Upper Great Lakes region. But the reason we're all here today is they have a collaborative EP that's releasing March 26th of this year called Floe, and they're here to talk about it with me. So welcome to both of you.
Hey, Kurt.
Thanks, Kurt.
So Luke, let's start with you. Cruising on your Instagram page, which is at Jollygood94, there are some clips and teasers of the Collabro project, but this EP that you have with Pat appears to be part 2. So I was hoping maybe you could catch us up on what the Collabro project is and how long you've been involved with that.
Well, to start that off, last year I did a challenge where for every day for a year, I made a beat or some piece of music and released it on Instagram, just sort of to get my foot in the door on social media and integrating that with music. And I was able to come across a lot of different producers, beat makers, musicians. But because of sort of that routine, I didn't really have time to collaborate with them. So when that was finished this year, I took a couple of weeks off and thought about it and decided that it'd be good to reach out to a few of them. And then some that I, share the same town with, like Pat, and put our minds together and make some projects over the course of the next year. And this is the second installment of the Collabro challenge, which I didn't come up with the name for. The first person in that named it, but it's the second installment, and it's totally different than the first one and probably the rest of them because it's more driven by real instruments as opposed to synthesizers and computer generated stuff, although there's a ton of that in there as well. So
sure,
a little bit on that.
Yeah, and you started off doing kind of like the beat a day thing, right? You were kind of focusing, was that more on the SP404 working on beat making? Every day you were going to produce something different, right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. And then that kind of evolved into this Collabro project. And I think it sounds like just trying to focus on extending those collaborations around further. Now, Patrick, I know you've worked with Luke and other projects before, but how did you get involved this time? How did he get you on board with the Collabro project? And then I'm wondering if you could tell us how you and him worked together during this time of COVID and social distancing.
Sure. Well, all it took was Luke sending me a text saying, hey, would you be interested in being a part of a project? And I said yes, because I knew that if Luke was involved or if Luke was heading it, that it was going to be musically and life fulfilling. And I was not wrong.
So an easy yes.
yeah, it made it pretty easy. So that's how he wrote me in. It was pretty easy. And then how we've been doing this project is we originally had started getting together, and the thought process for me, we were splitting ideas, sending ideas back and forth, and we had talked about using sounds of my son, who you can hear in the background, Ellery, because he's got a little mind of his own, and he makes some really amazing sounds, both on piano. He's been playing this drum and a recorder, and it's really amazing to see a baby create. And so the original thought was we can record him and use samples of him doing stuff. And we got together a few times and then very quickly realized we should, we need to cool it. And so then it was from that point on, which was October. I think
it was right before the Thanksgiving COVID surge, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
We've just been sending things back and forth. You know, I send little things to Luke, and then Luke does his wizardry and sends me a track, and then I, play over the track. So it's a multi-layered process, both from a creative standpoint and from like a formatting standpoint.
Sure. So Pat, like if let's say you want to sample Emery, record like a blurble or, like a vocalism or even an instrument, do you just kind of like reach for your smartphone or something and just like grab a voice memo real quick and then send it over? How does that process work?
Yeah. So I guess a project that I started when I think I recorded the first one. Ellery was maybe 4 months old, and I was sitting at the piano playing, and he was sitting next to me, and so I picked him up and put him on my lap, and he just like pushed a couple keys, and I recorded it. And so it started me down this 2-year-long process now at this point, almost 2 years, of just recording him playing piano. And then I've been sending them to my favorite improvisers around the world. And this all started at the beginning of lockdown. And they would record duets with him. And so I have this like list of people playing duets with my infant son. Because what I realized is when Ellery would sit at the piano and play, he would it was like true expression. And that's something that's very, very difficult as a learned musician and as a trained musician. It is very, very difficult to deal 100% in expression and creativity, because we're dealing with our musical knowledge of form, our musical knowledge of tone and sound and rhythm. And he's not. He is playing simply for the love of playing. And so it was like a really interesting experience. And so that's where that idea came from. With Luke I could send him, running toys down the piano keys again is like, he's got loves trucks. And so he's got different trucks, and they can all play the black keys and the white keys at the same time, but they're all different sizes. So they play different intervals. It's pretty, it's pretty wild. I think I definitely push more of the experimental stuff, and he just wants to play the white keys because that's what he can reach. But
sure.
That's really where it came from. So,
wow. So that's like, not to like compartmentalize, but it's like a mixture of instinctual music and chance music kind of like blended together. And then you don't have all those barriers of like, well, let's make this, 4-bar blues or something, whatever it is. Like, it's just pure musicality. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's been an amazing,
involved.
Yeah, it's been an amazing project. So it's going to get released. I'm going to release it for free when he turns 2. So that'll be coming up this August. There'll be like this list, and some of them are 33 seconds long, and some of them are 3 minutes, because he just when he's done playing, and
yep.
Sometimes they're short, sometimes they're long.
Exactly. Yeah. No rules
Nope.
for him. Well, so that's part of the genesis of this project too, with those collaborative sounds shared between the two of you as well. So let's talk about this EP called Floe. From checking it out online, seeing it's got a pre-release here, there are 5 tracks. And Luke, I know you've mentioned that this project is less beat heavy. It's not necessarily as hip hop influenced, but it still has some of that flavor, and also has some more instruments and kind of ambient soundscapes too. So looking towards those kind of sounds, and also looking to grow collaboration in different directions, how do you feel, or how do you both feel that this project has accomplished that?
Yeah, you said it. So much of what I've made for the past 2 years has revolved around a drum machine or some instance of one, and then building on top of that. But kind of like what Pat was describing the process as, if you start with sounds and situations that are sort of out of the normal scope of what you're used to, you can build on them in totally different ways than you would otherwise. So I found myself what little drums there are in this project, those came secondary or tertiary to like anything before them. So it is inherently a lot more, I mean, ambient's kind of cliche word, but it's more ambient in the sense that like there's not this fixed, well, I mean, not a fixed like meter for a lot of the phrasing of it. And Pat has a lot to do with that because his like melodic phrasing and such lends itself really well to be able to build around and underneath. So.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So it's kind of getting away from some maybe common forms that you've dealt with in the past and gives a little more freedom to each person, but also maybe just adding to that level of happy accidents or happy things on purpose that are just more chance-based, perhaps. So with these 5 tracks, do you each have like a favorite track on Floe? And if you do, what is it? Or is it hard to pick a favorite between just this idea of collaboration?
I mean, I suppose there's elements of all of them that I like about them specifically. Some are pretty short and like some of them evolve a lot dynamically, and some of them are just like a more simple idea executed a different way. So I wouldn't pick a favorite. I do like the opening track though. It moves around a lot, and then I think the 3rd track it's titled O, like a capital O, but it's supposed to mean circle. Pat sent me the original idea for that, and it went like all over the place. So that one moves around a lot, and it's fun to listen to that one blasting on the studio monitors. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say, oh man. So I love it all. You know, it's a cool process for me being, and this is, I guess, a lot of what I've been doing since March 2020, which is like a lot of studio stuff where I'm just like sort of in my space and people hire me to play horn parts. And so they send me like a basic track, or they send me like a fleshed out skeleton, I guess is a good way to put it. And then I put down horn parts, send them to whoever's producing it, whoever's mixing it and putting it together. And then I forget about it. Like I'm like, all right, cool. On to the next one, you know? And then they send it back and then I get to hear it all put together. And I'm just like, wow, you know, because it's completely different because and this project was no different. There's one track in particular, I think it might even be the first one that Luke was mentioning, where there's this big moment. And the first time I heard it, I was just, my arms went in the air instinctually and I was like, woo, there it is, you know, like that's why this record's getting released.
At the top of the roller coaster moment or something.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's great that it's also full of surprises for you too, in the way that this has come together. I mean, I think it's great that it's not just something that a listener that's not involved in the production of it can get really excited about, but between the two of you, you kind of feed each other's fire in a way with this collaboration. And kind of circling back to that idea of expanding your collaboration, it sounds like you've both like hit the mark in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been super fun.
Awesome. Just a reminder, this is Luke Arquette and Patrick Booth. We're talking about their new EP that's out March 26, 2021 called Floe. And we're talking about their 5 tracks and their collaborative process here. Now, it is March 2021 now, and we've kind of made reference to March of last year. And, you know, a lot has happened in a year's time, but at least the music has continued to bounce back and forth between the two of you and other collaborators as well. But releasing music online kind of during this pandemic time, at least it seems to me, is kind of a double-edged sword, because I'm sure you both want to like perform it live perhaps at some point or get that kind of live audience feedback. But of course, we can't really do that. So releasing music online is one of the next best efforts. And also like doing live streams or recording performances from home, you know, those are kind of like the next best best case scenario here. So what are both of your hopes for the impact that releasing this EP will have as we continue navigating the pandemic and, you know, just a much different world in general than early 2020.
You want to go back?
Sure, I'll go. For me, I hope it's just, I look at it the same way as I look at performing live. And this is something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, because for the longest time, I would say for almost 10 months of quarantine, I was doing really well, like mentally, you know, which like that's far better than some people. And then the last 2 months, I don't know if it was the mix of winter and the mix of quarantine, but it like really started to weigh on me. And I really started to think about why I play music, and why I learn music, and why I made it my life. And I realized that what I didn't know about music and what I didn't know about performing music was that was my way to let go of my emotions, because I've done it now for 15 years that way, and I don't know how to do it as a person. You know, it's like
during a pandemic too.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of things that everyone is dealing with, and for me, that's one of the hardest pills that I've had to swallow, is the fact that like I don't have a way to like talk about my emotions, because that's not what's natural for me. What's natural for me is to go and perform, and performing like is that release. It's that moment of clarity for my life. And so with the release of this, like I hope people can sense that. It's like they can sense the love and joy that went into making this project. Like whether it was distant or not, there's a lot of spirit in what we're releasing.
Awesome. Luke, how about you? How are you feeling about you know, the impact that not only the EP will make during this time, but also your thought process as we're kind of moving 1 year ahead from this pandemic here?
Yeah, I was thinking about something to say, and then Pat just like blew whatever that was out of the water. I don't think internalized that idea, but he's 100% right, I would say. And I don't know, it was probably a similar time frame where it started to weigh on me. I like making music in my room and being able to facilitate it myself, but there's something definitely lost when you're not able to, one, play with people in the same room, or with like people in the room as a mode of expression. And this project, when I started, I was thinking like I was going to try 4 collabs in a year, and the first one took a little bit longer than I expected, and then this one was taking longer, and it was like right in the middle of that period where I was thinking like, where like it was sort of becoming a chore, because I can't just like, Pat just can't come here and record, and we can do this thing that normally we could write a song in 20 minutes, or like we play for 10 minutes and that's a song. But when you have to bounce things back and forth, it's not that it's a negative experience. It's, you have to learn how to facilitate that, right? It's a different experience. And this project took longer than the 3 months, and I'm happy for it. And I think that's what I learned about this, is like in this time where you can't just go and do what you were used to maybe a year and a half ago. Things come a little bit more difficultly in I don't know. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to return to something similar to as it was before, but
there's a lot of variables when it comes to returning to that. So yeah, and I think you both kind of nailed it on the head with other musicians that I've talked to as well. It's, this feeling of weight that's kind of collected over time, and having the absence of maybe a normal transference of some of that weight or that energy that might be festering for a while. So at least, there is a bright side though, that, there's a vaccine out there, and hopefully more and more people will start getting that, and maybe some kind of version of normalcy will start to bloom again. But at least in the case of the two of you, you both still have that spark and have, searched for new ways to continue that collaborative process. So, it's great that you both have the patience to try out, new ways of communicating these ideas to each other. And you found yourself now with a great new EP, a new EP here called Floe. So kind of looking toward the future, are there more collaboro sessions or any other collaborations coming up between the two of you?
After this,
Mhm.
I envision if we're able to play live, that stuff will probably fall into place easily,
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a blast to play with Pat. So anytime, anywhere,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's wild to think. Since March 2020, since February 2020, I've played 4 gigs, and all 4 of them have been with Luke.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, our band Collider played at Superior Culture one night.
I was there.
Yeah,
That was a good night.
Yeah, more of that hopefully soon. And then we did some stuff with Blanco, and then Luke performed with me at the library this past August. But it's wild to think like that all spanned over a year's time. And here we are. But yeah, I think there will definitely be some more collaborating on our parts. Don't know what that means,
Right.
but it'll happen.
Yeah, we'll have to wait for the surprises as they inform each other along the way. So now, how can people find the Floe EP when it releases? And maybe if people are so inclined, find more information about either of you two in your musical capacities.
There is a link to the pre-save, so you can click the link, and essentially when the album drops at midnight the morning of the 26th, this Friday, I believe it will take you to the Spotify instance of it, and it's on all major streaming platforms. I just uploaded it to Bandcamp. Probably my Instagram bio would be the best place to find that link.
And then for you, Pat, where's the best place for people if they're looking for your music or your services?
Yeah. The easiest way to get a hold of me and find my stuff is probably through either Instagram. And my handle is Booth Train spelled like John Coltrane, because that's all I could think of. Yeah, it's like kind of the way it goes. And then also my music is on all major streaming services and also on Bandcamp. And Bandcamp is, for the people who don't know, is an incredible resource for independent musicians, where they can sell both hard copies and digital copies of their albums and their singles, and they get a much larger share than using iTunes or YouTube or Spotify. So I highly recommend people check out Bandcamp, especially because Bandcamp is doing revenue share. Yep, they're doing another revenue share the first Friday of April. So 100% of the proceeds made on that day go to the artists.
So that's a good day to put on the calendar, for that Friday and any other Bandcamp Friday, to check out Floe for sure. And it's also available on other streaming services as well. Are there any other details that either of you would like to share as we wrap up today?
Not really. Just thankful for you reaching out.
Yeah. Friday night, Luke and I are doing a live stream show.
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. 9 p.m. Friday on Instagram and Instagram.
Probably just Instagram.
Just
we
Instagram.
could rig up YouTube too, but we'll see.
Yeah. So we're gonna do a live rendering of something that will resemble the Floe EP.
That's well said. Yeah. We'll see what happens. We don't know what's going to happen. It'll be fun.
A permutation of what is from the EP, perhaps. So,
yep.
Well, that sounds great. And again, Luke Arquette and Patrick Booth talking about their Floe EP. I want to thank you both so much for taking some time to talk about this and, you know, other topics in music. And again, thanks for being guests on the Local Spin.
Thanks so much, Kurt.
Yeah, thank you, Kurt.